Hello there, my friends. Today I thought it would be a great idea to work on a little bit of a steampunk design. And so what I've got here is just a little bit of cardstock. It is trimmed down to 5 inches by 7 inches. So it's a little bit of a manageable shape. And then I've got a couple of pens. If you have microns or anything like that, any kind of felt tip pens, that's fine. And then I've also got this little tool here so that I can make some circles. We are going to be making a few of them. And you can also do them freehand if you like. They don't have to be done with a tool or anything. So how about we just go ahead and get started here. So the first thing that I do want to do is to think of a spot where I want my main element. I am going to start with a clock, and it is going to take up quite a bit of space. So I want it to be not in the middle, just aesthetically I like it to be a little bit off center. So a little bit higher, a little bit to the left is kind of where I'm going. So I made a relatively large circle right there. You can see that. And I'm just going to be adding a couple of concentric circles. I won't exactly be drawing on these, but I am going to be using this as a foundation for a couple of interesting little shapes that I'm going to be adding. So there we have it. There is the beginning of it. Now I'm going to just grab a ruler just because I like to have this circle cut up into quadrants. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut it very lightly with the pencil basically. I'm just going to draw a line down the middle like that so it's cut in half. And then I'm going to turn it and add another line just like this. So that now I have these quadrants, and I'm going to add these little elements on each one of those four corners essentially. I know they're not corners, but I will add these little, I'll call them triangles, these little triangles. And I'm going to add them kind of to mark the times for 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's see how they look. And so you know, as I'm working throughout this entire drawing, I am trying out new ideas. I haven't really done these too much, and I'm just kind of hoping that it comes out right. Whatever else you'd like to draw on here, whatever you'd like to add, go for it. I'm kind of just giving you my idea for how I want to start this one. So you can see there, I did my four little triangles, and then I just drew that first circle. This is going to be the face of the clock. And then what I'm going to do here is, I think right here in between those first two circles, I'm just going to add another circle. I think I'd like one that's a little bit kind of close to that first circle. So there, this kind of frames the clock. Now I'm going to start adding these strange little segments. So you'll see like this, they're kind of incomplete. And they're all going to be at slightly different heights, slightly different lengths. I think this is the part that makes it a little bit more fun, is when the shapes are just kind of haphazardly added. Some are taller, some are shorter. They kind of overlap in strange ways. So that's what I've decided to do with this one. I think it starts to look really nice once they start to layer up. And if, of course, as usual, if you'd like to see this a little bit slower, just know that you can always rewind and play the video at half speed, and it should be nice and slow, and you should be able to see it with more detail. So you can always do that. So here we are. These are the shapes that I added in right here. I'm just going to go ahead and add a circle in the center. This is going to be the foundation for the hands of the clock. And I decided to just kind of add a very, very simple, kind of minimalist hand here. Just kind of like an arrow, just this pointed arrow. I think the next time that I do a clock, I will try to do a little bit more detail, maybe something a little fancier. Just for this time, I decided to keep it a little bit simple, just so that I can get it done. And so now that this part of the clock is done, I am going to come back to it later and add some detail. But for now, I'd like to continue some more of the line work. What I'd like to add now is a gear, because of course this is steampunk, and we can't do steampunk without some big juicy gears. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you my technique for drawing gears. And I end up having a bit of a hard time using this tool, but it is in my desk, and so I do want to use it from time to time. And as you can see, what I'm doing is what I'm drawing is a sequence of circles that are concentric, and the total number of circles are going to be 5. It doesn't really matter how far apart they are, except for those last 2 circles. Those last 2 are where we're going to draw the teeth of this gear. So make sure that those last 2 circles are a little bit close together. So here's mine. These are my 5 circles. In that first circle, I can just draw like this. It doesn't really need to have any kind of other detail. For now, at least, you can always embellish later, of course. But for now, we're just going to get started by, again, finding the quadrants, and we're going to draw these double bars like that. So you see here we have kind of like if it were north, south, east, and west. And then I'm going to add an additional set of bars there in between those. So now I have like 8 sets of bars. So there we go. We've got 8 bars. These are going to be the little support bars. And now what I'm going to do is ink in the space in between where it looks kind of like there's a bit of a trapezoid shape. And I will ink that in. And just stylistically, I like to make those shapes a little bit rounded. I think they just look more pleasing when they're rounded. So once I've done that, I'm going to use my pencil and just start marking off those same places. So essentially, I will have the 8, and then I'm going to add additional lines so that there's twice as many. I know there are a few of them are hiding behind the clock, but let's just say now it's gone to 16, and then I'm going to add another set, so now it's doubled again. And so now I'm going to use all these little dash marks to create the teeth. And just notice that when I'm drawing the teeth, I'm not being terribly careful, but there is something that I am doing purposefully, and that is that the teeth are sort of angled. They don't follow directly the lines that I drew. They need to be a little bit angled this way. I think just because it looks like a more pleasing gear and a little bit more realistic. So there we go. We have that first gear set in place, and it's a fairly large one too. It's almost the size of the clock. And I actually really like that. I like drawing just really large gears. So what I am going to try to do is next to this one, I'm going to draw another gear. And I'll show you what I tend to do when I draw it is first I'll add in a circle here right next to the edge of the first one. So that's what I've got. And then I'll add another circle outside of that touches the inside of the first gear's teeth, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. But you can look at the drawing here. So here are the circles and how they kind of overlap. It's going to be a little messy here because I'm not going to be terribly scientific about this. But essentially what I'm trying to do is just make some teeth here that interlock. So right in there, I'm hoping that a tooth will interlock there. And then the rest of this, so as opposed to that first gear that I drew, which was cut up really nicely in perfect amounts. This one I'm just kind of gonna just draw it in, just sketch it in, and you can see it looks just fine. So if you just want to sketch your teeth in like this, don't worry about it, you can do it. It looks just fine. You'll do great. And then what I am going to do is add a few additional circles where I think they'll look a little bit better. And so I added some circles like that, and now I'm going to add some bars. To this one in particular, I'm only going to add 3 bars in the center of the gear. I think it's another look that looks really nice on these. And as you see here, I'm just going in with my pen. And I'm adding in those teeth, and I'm inking in those 3 segments. Essentially, I'm cutting them out. And now I'm just going to do that center circle and just kind of add a little dot in the middle. And I think for this one, I'm going to go back to it and just add this kind of bar down the middle so it looks like it's connected to something. So there we go. Those are the 2 gears. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, so it looks pretty good so far. I'm really liking it. I'm just going to go in and erase those pencil marks. As I start working on the next elements, it's nice to kind of have a clean page and not have anything interfering with the next set of designs. Now, as far as the next set of designs, I do those freehand. I don't really use the pencil anymore at this point just because they're more intuitive, and so I'll show you right here. I'm just going to start drawing a series of arches. And the innermost segment, I'll just color it in black, just like that. And I'm going to pick a few spots around just to do that. And now you can interpret this in any way that you like. They could be cables, they could be wires, they could be these kind of coiled up pieces of metal. It could be anything. So really, you can interpret it however you like. I just really enjoy drawing these kind of shapes like that, these arches or these arcs. I just think they look really nice like that. So there we go. There's another set right there. And so as I'm thinking about filling in, I'm going to repeat a few things here. So as far as those arches go, I'm going to add another one right here. There we go. Like I said, I will be adding more details to this later in a few minutes. But for now, I'm just going to start filling it in. And so it is okay. Every once in a while, we're going to add in some kind of straight lines. So right here, let's do some straight lines. Again, this is open to interpretation. That's what's so nice about these kind of doodles and drawings. And they're a little bit abstract, and it just looks really nice. The more you leave for the viewer to try to interpret, the more interesting it is. So as you can see, I'm just kind of adding these shapes. I'm not truly defining them. I sort of think of them as just these tubes or cables or whatever it is that the viewer wants to interpret. And so you see here I start with almost like this little box and then just put something else on top of it. And again, feel free to try out different designs. Sometimes you can layer them up a little bit just like this. And then here what I'm going to do is draw a little bit of a pipe. So you'll see this is how I draw it. Just like that. And I put this kind of coupler at the end of it. And here I'm going to draw these kind of cables that go around like that, just like that. Let's see. Can add a little bit more here so you can layer them just like that. So you can see that just the beginning line work is very, very easy to achieve. It's nice and easy. I'm going to draw another pipe over here. I usually like to repeat the elements. If I just draw one of something, I feel like it's kind of lonely. So made sure I had another pipe on the other side like that. Let's see. How about another kind of cable here? Just going around. Can't really see what it's connecting to. Maybe there's a motor or some kind of engine in the back. Of course, this is steampunk, so we have to have a lot of valves and openings for steam to come out of. So there we go. We're just adding lots of these all over the place. Alright, so it looks like we are still missing a few little things before we go in and do a lot of detail. So we will want to go in at some point and add probably the rest of the hours, or at least a few more tick marks on the clock. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Right now I'm moving on to a smaller pen right now. It's an 03, so it is considerably smaller than the one I was just using. And I'm just going to start adding all this little bit of hatching, just really easy lines. You see like that? They look like little eyelashes. And I'm just going to go around and just add these little tick marks along the edges of these shapes. Notice how just by adding those it gives them some more dimension. Just like that. Nice and easy. You don't have to worry too much about the details. You just kind of add a little bit of this kind of hatching. Helps it look a little more interesting. And so what I am going to do is just kind of go around on each one of these segments and on the sides like that. Just add all these little hatch marks. Of course, there are other ways that you could do the shading here or the detail work. You could definitely do some colored pencils, some markers. It's all up to you. If you like to do watercolors, go for it. Right here, this is the time when if you don't feel comfortable adding all this kind of little detail, then feel free to use whatever your favorite method is right now to add detail and color. I prefer using the pen, and I really do enjoy kind of just sitting here. Even if it doesn't look too perfect, I just love it. It's fine. I don't really worry about if my lines are a little bit squiggly, a little bit weird. It doesn't really matter to me. I just enjoy my time kind of drawing, making silly little things. So right here I decided to add just a little bit more line work to add more depth. So you can see that right there. And if you're wondering about where to add the tick marks, in case you're ever confused or you're not sure, I try to add those little hatch marks or tick marks, whatever we want to call them. I add that kind of shading and detail work along the edges. And all I'm really thinking about is what kind of a shape is this? So you can see that I try to add the lines to where there would either be a little shadow or wherever I want to imply that the shape is kind of falling away. So essentially my little shading here is creating these sort of pipe-like shapes. At least in my mind, that's what I think is happening. Maybe it isn't, but that is my intent at the very least, and I think it looks all right. So there we go. You can see that I'm just going to keep adding lots of little lines, and I think this is where it really comes to life, where the magic really happens. I don't believe during this video, no, during this one I won't have the time to add color, but I do actually want to add color later. Maybe on a separate time we can have something showing how I add the color, but I think for now I'll probably leave the color for later, for a different time. And just focus on the ink work right now, because unfortunately, very much unfortunately, it can take quite a bit of time just to add color. It can take a long time. So there you go. You can see it's starting to come together really nicely. Just with these little lines. So there you see just the edges. That's everywhere I'm going. It's just on the edges. Even on the tiniest little pieces, I'm adding those little lines right there. Same thing right here. This is the spot on the edges where the shapes kind of overlap. So I'm just adding the lines. I'm going to go ahead and add in the little marks on the clock just to help it look more obvious there. And looking at the way the clock looks right now, I really do like it, and I think that the next time that I work on it, I'm definitely going to be adding some more of those traditional elements, like probably some Roman numerals and a little bit more detail to the hands on the clock. I think I'll do that. That should look nice. So what I'm doing here, you can see, is I'm just filling in the background of that gear. I could add more details. That's always an option, of course. But I think in this case, I'm pretty happy just coloring it in black. So I'm just going to fill it with ink. And I'll be doing the same with the other gear. So I'll just be filling it in. There we go. So you can see it's just going to get filled in really nicely. And like I said, feel free to add more detail. Feel free to kind of expand on this and add some more. This is always really nice. Alright, so just going to finish filling those in. There we go. And so what I am going to just make sure that I keep going here with the detail. And I am still using the 03 pen, so it is a little bit smaller than the other pen. And so as we finish up the details on some of these remaining little elements here, I would like to remind you that if you follow my tutorial, I hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of it. If you want me to slow it down a little bit more, or what kind of things you think could improve it a little bit, what kind of designs you'd like to see. So I would love that. I do love to hear the feedback on these. And the other thing is, if you're going to share your drawings on social media, please do me a huge, huge favor and share in the description my tag. My tag is included in the description of the video. It's at BetsyJ. I am on Instagram. I do really appreciate the help that all of you guys give me when it comes to a little bit of exposure. Sometimes I do know that all of you share these kind of things on Facebook, and I do appreciate it. What it means is that when you share my tags, it really does help other people see my work. It helps them discover, and I can reach more people. That's always really the best way, I think, is for anyone to discover my work, is through friends, through relatives, through people who enjoy this. And so I really would like this to reach anyone who could really enjoy this and really have like a good time drawing along with me. So again, I really do appreciate it. Please make sure that you are including my tags or links or anything that you can. I do appreciate it, because I have been noticing a lot lately on Instagram and a few other places that people follow my tutorials, but they never tag me. They never mention that it was my work, and it's a little disheartening, but I know it happens. Maybe people forget, or they just don't realize that that's kind of the etiquette whenever you follow somebody else's work. And so here it is. Here is the end of it. I think that this is pretty much done. It's done and done. And I hope that you really enjoyed it. Please go ahead, share your images, tag me. I will be able to see them that way. And that way I can share them as well. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you in the next one.